Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday gym because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. Afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. Right on, Steve. Thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Denny.
Thanks for being with me. You have a lot to say. The program will be focused on three main questions. What do you do for a living? How did you get there? And how did you know that this was the way to go? So tell us what you do for a living, please.
Sure. Well, now that I'm retired, I'm an author. But previous to that, I was in cybersecurity, and my last job, I helped develop cybersecurity software. And to your point, to your question, how did I get there?
Yeah, were you like walking on the street one day and you're like, let me do the cybersecurity thing, or something come up? Because in all fairness, I tried it. Not intensely. I went to this course, I'm sure you're familiar with it, Cisco CCNA networking, and it was interesting. I had that title, network architect. Sounds pretty good, right? I hated every single second of it. I used to work like my work was related for about 3 or 4 months. I was miserable. The payment was good. The payment was really good. I'm not going to lie about it. It was pretty good. But I was miserable. It's not a job for everybody. So, what made you do this, especially for a career?
Well, I'm going to be 70 this year. So if we turn the Wayback Machine way back,
Yeah, you
uh,
look great, by the way.
thank you, thank you. Good paint job.
Right on.
Yeah. The so back in the 60s, I was very interested with technology. My father, my grandfather, all my uncles, they were all what was called millwrights. So they were the people that kept the mill running, mostly lumber mills up in the Northwest in Northern California, things like that. But they were all mechanics, people who kept things running. So I inherited some of that sort of, I think, intuitive understanding of
We have
machines
to
and
fix that
everything.
mentality.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I got into from a course in high school, learned about radios, built a little radio station in high school, and it was in the Bay Area in a town called Fremont on the east side of San Francisco. So we were right in the middle of where the technology was starting to grow, chips, computers, things like that, Hewlett Packard in the very early days. And so that just took off. And so I joined the Army and went through several schools that taught me how to fix radios, and then ended up working at the White House, not
Wow.
only fixing the radios, but also going on trips and setting them up and operating them. So as that went forward and I expanded my topics into physical security, video alarm systems and like that around the White House. I remember when I got my first Commodore computer and I had a cassette that I loaded program from and things like that, cassette player. And I was just always interested with the technology. I was never a good programmer, but I understood all the principles of security, how to mesh physical and electronic security together, and understood the principles enough that my career evolved into what was called product management. So in that case, you don't have to know all the technology, but you gather requirements. You help the developers understand what the customers need, what the government says they have to have, and yeah, so that from I think the last time I worked on a network, it was Novell 2, which was
It's been
many,
a
many
while.
years ago. You're right, right.
Yeah.
Big fat cables and different things like that. So I get you with the networking. But product management and the cybersecurity space has a lot of jobs that don't require you to be a black hat, a hacker, or a very good programmer. There are many things that go on. As you probably know from your time being a network administrator, you have network operations center, security operations center, the people that run and try and manage the business, make sure hackers don't get in. So there are people who set up software, who operate it, but don't have to know all the internals of it, right? They just have to make sure it's operating appropriately, and helping the customer or your business or your customer with their security. So it was a long road through radios and early days of chips. I remember I had one of the first Mac computers. It looked like a little R2D2, little
Yeah.
thing. I used to have to put a floppy disk in to make a circle, eject it, and then put another floppy in to make a square when I was doing drawings and stuff. So I've seen a lot of technology over the years and um, can relate to it, know how to use it to best effect. But I'm not the one under the hood doing the programming or like you say, setting up Cisco routers to make sure that you and I can email each other or that
Yeah.
this video works, that kind of thing, right?
There
So
was this meme, I don't know if you saw it. So they're like an older gentleman is showing a floppy disk to a kid. And the kid will look at, why did you treat it printer the safe icon?
exactly. And
Yeah, so I do know about that, but and first I'm happy that we no longer have to use those. They were pretty useful back in the day. I can easily go without them.
oh yeah, we had stacks of them. My first job as a government contractor, we didn't even have computers. We would write out um, our reports on yellow pad, and then a lady would transcribe them on a Xerox, and it had big discs that were about, floppy disk were about 8 inches big versus the little plastic ones. So we've come a long way, right, in the technology, certainly in storage, right? Now you can have a thing that looks like your thumbnail, and
Yep.
it can be a USB device that can carry gigabytes of data. So the technology continues to amaze me, the advances in computing. Um, it's really interesting being in the cybersecurity space, right? Because you're trying to do good things and protect your company and or the government, and then there's just a host of people out there that are going to beat on you and try and do bad things, right? And so it's almost I don't know if you remember, there was a comic book series called Mad Comics, and in the back they had this.
No,
You have to
no.
look it up. It's called Spy versus Spy. So there's
Yeah, I'm
one.
familiar with the concept.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. And so you get to play, not play because it's real
Yeah.
world results, but you're in this game of push and pull. So you add a new technology and then the bad guys figure it out. And then, so you're always working to understand what they're thinking about and trying to minimize what they can do to you or your company.
The worst of those conflicts, first of all, they're never going to end. We're always going to have those conflicts, but the worst of them, because I'm a little bit of a history buff myself, I love history. I'm from Southern Europe, pretty rich place regarding history, and
Mhm.
I'm generally interested in that. And what is crazy is because it's easy from our point of view to look back and say those people were insane, they had no morals or anything about it, but it's easy to do it now. Every single conflict that I have personally studied so far, absolutely every single, beginning with the Trojan War until what we're seeing today in Russia, Ukraine, or Gaza, Israel, every single conflict is between, you know, bad guys and good guys from a certain point of view, but both sides truly believe that they're the good guys. And that's the worst thing about any conflict. You can take the Cold War, you can take North and South Korea, it doesn't matter. Both sides believe that they are the good guys. And this is why uh, there is always going to be collateral damage. I don't want to sound, disrespectful or repulsive or anything. It's just what it is, and that's just what I believe from what I've read and from what I saw.
That's interesting, Denny, because I just wrote a first chapter of book 5 in my Shadow Tier series, and that's the series that revolves around the Sinaloa cartel and the drug war. And my good guy knows exactly that. He's like, here I am once again, trying to do something, and on the other side, there's people that are just like us who have goals and believe they're doing the right thing, either maybe it's for their own selfish needs, but maybe it's for their family or their nation, right? And
Yeah.
it's that's how we get conflict is, when peoples have different viewpoints about what the right result is, right? So always interesting. I think in the case of cyber security, what we see is a lot of nation states, and I would say one of the things that was an aspect of everything that you've talked about, like from the Trojan War to today, there was always an information component. As
Yeah.
Alexander marched into Persia, right, to
Yeah.
fight Darius, he was looking for information. He was looking for ways to get the upper hand. Like, I don't think I'll attack you today. I think I'll go down and take Egypt and get him on my side, things like that. So there was always an information component. There were always even back then, they used ciphers and ways to disguise their messages. So now it's digital, now it's
Yeah.
ones and zeros, but all those concepts are still there.
No, the
The
method is still the
misinformation.
same. The methodology is never going to change. I forgot the name of a professor. He was remarkable. I used to listen to him when I was rather younger. He's a translator. He's translating the Sanskrit clay tablets in Iraq and Iran. And, he was asked, well, that's a little bit primitive. So why do we need that knowledge? And he said, although that's primitive, it stood for 6,000 years. If you believe your laptop will be able to sustain that much time, it probably won't. So nothing really changes, I guess that's my point. And about my third question, how did you knew that this was the way to go? Reason I'm asking, you said you're from the United States, so I believe you've noticed the same issue we have here in Europe. People tend to go to colleges and universities because they do have that stigma. Once you're there, you will secure your future and you have a better life. Truth be told, that hasn't been the case for about 30 years now, it's probably even more. I am not, as I multiple times explained, I am not against colleges. I went to college. I have a master's degree. I graduated. So, but I knew exactly what I was going to do when I was either 15 or 16. I'm by profession an accountant, auditor, or financial analyst. It's, basically it's the same thing, but
Mhm.
different aspects. So that's what I knew. And you kind of need a degree for that. It's not mandatory, but it helps. But I can say I'm a minority in that case. A lot of people are doing it just for the diploma. Once they graduate, they start doing either something completely different, which is a total loss of time. And I assume you've lost money. I've lost money. Everybody I know lost money at some point. Losing money is fine. Losing this friends, relationships, that's okay. It's part of the journey. Losing time though, now that's a little bit of a trick thing because you can't get it back, right? And either they go into that losing time category or they continue with something that is clearly not for them. And I'm not insulting people when I'm saying that this isn't for them because it's just not everybody are good at everything. And from what I'm seeing, I've been doing this for a while now, it is impossible for somebody to be a happy person if you're miserable about 8 to 10 hours a day. It doesn't work like that. Now, if you're a single woman or a single man, you can be miserable on your own. It's not fine, but it's acceptable, I guess. However, if you have a family, you're going to be miserable over there with them. And that's going to reflect. You can't hide it. No matter how good of an actor one is, you just can't hide it. It doesn't work like that. And you're a very interesting case because you had a lot of options, like you knew how to fix things. Yet I mean, yeah, okay, going to the army is one thing, but you had I'm certain that you had multiple options. You could have chosen any number of things, yet you decided to go with that one. Now, why did you do it? And once you answer, could you tell us a little bit more about the books that you're writing and so on and so forth?
Sure. So after high school, I was well, let me back up even further. So uh, in the United States, there was a magazine book that came out every month called National Geographic. And in National Geographic, I got to see the rest of the world. So I always had this yearn to see the world, right? I knew the United States, I knew its history, but I wasn't as interested in that, figuring I could always get back to it, as I was the rest of the world. So I had this bend, this idea. So when I joined the Army, um, number one, I knew I'd get seasick out in the ocean, so I didn't join the Navy. I knew that, but I
You
joined
knew
the
yourself. That's good.
yeah, yeah. But and unfortunately, my whole family's Navy and Merchant Marine. But I joined the Army to stay on the ground, and but with the idea of being able to see the world or have more access to the world than I had from my little town in Northern California. Beautiful place, redwood trees, all not very nice, but somewhat isolated. So I joined the Army, and then started raising my hand because opportunities started to appear. So I started to volunteer, and I was going to go to an Army base and just be somebody in a green uniform, um, working a radio system and training and running around like a normal Army guy. And then these guys showed up in suits with longer hair and started talking about traveling the world. And I raised my hand, raised my hand, raised my hand. I got interviewed and off I go. And so they give me that radio training. I end up at the White House. I transfer to the Secret Service. All that was just because I was open to the opportunity and kept raising my hand, volunteering and looking for those opportunities. And I had that goal in mind. I want to see the world. And so I was lucky. My first trip out of the United States, we went through Paris to New Delhi, and the mission was actually in Bangladesh. And so I got to
Very
see,
exotic.
yeah, very, very much so. I see the lights of Paris, and then I start to see how some of the rest of the world lives. And I really get an introduction, right, to people who don't live with much, who live like in the median of the road is where they sleep, and poverty and things like that, Bangladesh at the time. And so that was a great learning for me. And I kept growing and learning things and taking classes, but it took me 17 years to finish college because
Wow.
I was doing well in, sort of as a blue collar tradesman, radio, other things like that, in law enforcement and the Secret Service. I was a technical security specialist. So once again, I worked with alarms, video, sort of physical security, bomb teams, things like that. And so when I finished school, because a boss said, I can't give you a raise, I can't promote you anymore until you finish your college. And so, yes, sir, I finished it. And then even more, like you say, even more doors opened up, but they opened up because I had a focus of where I wanted to go.
Not to
I,
mention, you were already an adult. You were already a shaped man. You didn't do it for the diploma. The diploma was basically a means to an end for you.
Right, exactly. It's sort of the opposite of other people who parents push them and they just go to to placate their parents or whatever, and it's paid for, those kind of things. So yeah, I was now in my late 20s, early 30s, and middle 30s, I should say, and did it as an additional means to an end, right? And
Yeah.
so that served me well, just like taking certain classes served me well to move forward. But I went forward, especially after my early 20s and getting my feet on the ground, I started to move forward with a focus. And I knew I wanted to, number one, while I was on active duty in the military, support the nation. But then after that, I became a defense contractor in the United States, and continued to work with the military while I was in the National Guard doing part-time military. So I had a focus on that. And there were times when it was a grind where, um, you just have to work, put your head down and get it done.
Yeah, but
That's
that's
the
in
way
every job.
every job, that's life, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, that's life. Yeah. So, um, but I've always been able to smile, feel satisfaction, whether it's finishing a report, a proposal to the government, or tightening up the security for a certain agency, those kind of things.
This is a specific feature for your generation.
Mhm.
That whole being able to just do the job. That's one thing I admire you guys for. Because to be honest, and I'm not, trying to degrade younger people or anything. I'm just highlighting what I'm seeing, and if somebody believes I'm wrong, please correct me. Okay, I don't know anything, right? Everything, right?
Well, it's interesting because I saw my friends give, I had a couple different types of friends who had kids, right? There were the ones who just gave their kids opportunities. You want to try the violin? We'll get you a violin and let them find their own path and help them along the way. And then there were, so they were given opportunities to learn and explore. And then I had other friends that just, I didn't have it, so I give it to you. You
yeah,
know, yeah, here you're 16, you're just learning how to drive. Here's a brand new Mustang or a brand new
yeah.
car, things like that. And I don't think that some of
That's the
that
last thing isn't
generation,
healthy at all.
no, exactly. I don't think that helped at all. My, we had um, sort of a middle class upbringing. We always had food and a roof, but like I always had clothes that were last year's clothes,
Yeah.
things like that. Nothing drastic, but I always had this idea. My dad, because of his upbringing, was all about, he instilled in me that, when you're 18, you're going to be out of the house, you're going to have a
Yep.
job, you're going to start making your way in the world. He was so strict that I wanted to be out of the house at 14.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, yeah. But that ingrained in me is that idea, if I want it, I can visualize it, I can see it, I'll go after it, right? And this translated over into writing. So in my writing, um, I had done everything but write a book. I had done PowerPoints. I had done,
No, it was about time.
yeah, Gantt charts. I had done if the readers know what a storyboard is, that's a like a an 11 by 14 piece of paper where you put a picture and then you talk about the story, almost like you're writing a movie. It's storyboards is what they used to use in Hollywood to put a movie up on a wall and then look at it as it goes through the movie. So I'd done all those kind of things. And then finally in November of 2019, sort of between Thanksgivings and the Christmas holidays here in the States, my wife said, why don't you just start writing? And I'd written reports, I'd written proposals to the government, I'd written technical documents about software, all these things, but I'd never written a novel. So I just started writing. And at the same time, I started researching, what is it? What do you have to do to write a novel? It's one thing to write a story, but is it in a way that would, get somebody to read it, to be interested in it and things like that. And so me being me and a little bit OCD, when I get into a new thing, right, I go sort of all in and do the research. I found a mentorship, and because I figured the best way to, right, over the years, you find out that sometimes the best way to uh, accelerate your entry into something new you want to do is find a mentor, right?
Yeah.
Somebody that can help you, tell you, don't worry about this, don't that, do this, focus on this, look at your work, give you feedback. And I've been lucky over the course of my life to have some great mentors, both in the military and in commercial life, and help me accelerate my capabilities and my value to my customer, to my company, all those kind of things. And so I started writing in 2019, and my first book, called Shadow Tear, is about a protagonist. He's Crow-Indian and on vacation with his parents for the first time in a dozen years. He's on vacation. He's able to break away from the military and get some time with his parents in Mexico. And they're driving back up to southern United States, like Phoenix, Tucson area, when they stop for lunch, and then there's a cartel gunfight, they get involved, and his parents are killed. So the first book's a bit of a revenge book for Lance Beowulf as my protagonist. And
If you have links about
yeah,
it, you just give it to me so because it sounds pretty interesting,
thank
and
you.
I like to put it in the description so that people can check it out.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And so the first book, I've won Military Writers Association award for that book. And so that was published in 22. So from 19 to the middle of 22, I wrote, I re-edited, I learned, and then was able to find a publisher that took the book on and published the book. And since that time, I've written a second book. It was published last August, and my third one is uh, is in editing. I actually have a fourth book done that I had done in between all that. That's sitting there ready for editing. So I'm a little bit ahead of the game. But
Retirement suits you.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. Retirement, everybody's thinking, I'm going to go sit on the porch, drink coffee, read the newspaper. I think I'm almost as busy in retirement as I am in was full time, because I'm also consulting to some cybersecurity companies, helping them with their products and such. So,
Truth be told, that's exactly how I want to retire because I can't see myself sitting somewhere. You mentioned mentors, and I was blessed to have a few really good. And although they were either my supervisors or my professors, they always treated me with the way they were treating an old friend. And it's a very warm feeling that you just can't fake it. And they really highlighted that, like, for example, one of my professors told me that no matter how good you're doing in life, how well you're doing in life, no money and everything, get a second job. Not for the money, just get a second job so that you can have that mentality. Because you just built in a different way once you make a habit of it, to say it like that.
exactly. I active retire. I'm like you. I couldn't imagine sitting around. Um, I watched my father. He actually raced open wheel sports cars and VWs and different things all the way up until he was 80. And then he sat down and just started reading. And that's when I saw him decline. I
Yeah.
believe as an older person, I'm all about mobility and movement. The reason people think I'm so young is because I act young and I have fun. And, but I also like the activity that I get from writing and consulting keeps my brain fresh. I get to see new ideas. I get to see new things that I actually pull into my books, right? New technology and different things like that. And I'm still excited about cybersecurity, the potential of AI helping defend companies from, whether it's nation state stuff like Chinese or Russians or Iranians, North Koreans, things like that. So I'm blessed in that I'm able to keep these connections and keep moving. And in the meantime, I'm mentoring some other people. And that makes me feel good too, to pass that on, that knowledge that I got from my mentors, and help them apply it in different situations in the workspace.
It is truly quite a feeling. And with that said, Steve, I gotta run because of time, but again, there's no way you can cover all that life experience in such a short time. So we should do it again. We should do a part two or something because you're just like a walking encyclopedia. And but with wisdom every now and then. So not only knowledge, so that's the best way I can describe a man like you. And with that said, huge thanks for being with me. I really appreciate it. And please send me all the links so that people can check it out once they see the episode.
Thank you very much, Denny. Best to you. Take care.
Right on. Bye, sir. Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.